Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out to this LabStart informational webinar and spending your Juneteenth holiday morning with us here. Before we get started, I'm just going to play a little video here so you guys can hear a little bit more from our past alumni about why they really enjoyed the LabStart fellowship program.
The crossover between LabStart mission and mine is that they believe in people.
Being in the LabStart Fellowship, what it gave me instantly is to solely work on the mission that I always wanted to work on.
And also the opportunity to license very impactful technologies from national labs or university that's really just sitting there.
LabStart's exactly what it is, and it is a start. It starts us up and provides us lab opportunity.
There's really not a lot of support programs out there. Once you form a company, there's a whole load of different accelerators out there, but there's very few that provide support before you even form a company.
Describe LabStart: community, clarity, climate. Those are my 3 words.
LabStart believes in diverse entrepreneurs. They're giving that leap of faith for entrepreneurs like us, and sometimes we need that someone who can believe in us so others can follow too.
LabStart embraced us and honestly has really opened up a whole new world for us. They really have said, listen, we've been knocking on doors for a while. We've gotten some of them to open. We want you guys to join us when we walk through this door.
Having LabStart in my corner to help with this licensing process is really, really helpful. And also just to navigate all the business models and all the fundamental building blocks.
LabStart's been huge in making sure we're getting in those rooms, making sure we're at Climate Week, making sure that we're bringing people in to pitch.
So what initially really wanted me to join the fellowship was I could work with a cohort and work with a group of people who are going through similar challenges.
Saying, hey, we'll not just hold your hand, but we'll be here for support, because sometimes it's not holding hands that I need. It's just like someone to be like, hey, let me talk to you for a second.
It didn't feel like a journey alone. It really transformed the way that, I was starting to see like, okay, I can actually do this. I have access to things that I never would have had by myself, which is true. And they've made a lot of connections for me, which has also been really phenomenal, just like putting myself out there and just being introduced to people. So LabStart has been really pivotal in where I am right now with my technology.
Awesome. Hope you all enjoyed that. So before getting into the presentation today, just wanted to go around and do a round of intros for who you're seeing here on the screen today from the LabStart side. So I'm Troy Daly. I'm the program director here at LabStart. So working directly with all of our entrepreneurs and running our program so that we're providing the best experience to everyone who's part of our program today. I can go over to Alex.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Alex Rewer. I am the operations manager here at LabStart. So essentially making sure that all of our programming is running well from a back-end perspective. And yeah, nice to meet you all. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Holcomb, the Chief Operating Officer at LabStart, and yeah, I'm really excited to see who submits an application. It's one of our favorite times to see what comes in and all the amazing ideas, and I'm really excited you're here for this info session.
So, Jen.
And I'm Jen. I am the curriculum lead with Alice Havel, who's not here today, but you'll be hearing from me in a few minutes about what that all means. So really, really glad to see so many of you on the call today.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Perfect. All right. So yes, thank you again for everyone joining us here today. Here to talk about the LabStart Fellowship Program and give you guys a bit more detailed overview about what is the program, what you can expect from the program, and who would be good applicants for the program. Awesome. So let's start with what is the LabStart Fellowship. The LabStart Fellowship is an opportunity for you to create and launch your own deep climate startups with market problems that you identify and technologies that you select from the nation's premier research institutions. Through this fellowship, really want you to be going out and talking with real people in the market to really identify what are the real challenges that are out there, and it'll be helping you work with scientists to actually find those technologies that can solve those problems. So, and maybe here's what is the LabStart experience. All of us here on the team have been working with entrepreneurs, have been entrepreneurs ourselves, and really see that there's a lot of issues, a lot of barriers around launching a climate startup, and it can be a lonely journey. So we've really developed this LabStart experience as a cohort-based system so that you're not alone on this climate journey, so that you're working with different entrepreneurs, so that your experience there is really diversified, and a lot of these people can be bringing in these different experiences into the space. So we've really built this experience to be a cohort of entrepreneurs, so that you're not alone on this climate journey, so that you're working with other peers who are on this similar journey as you, and they can share in their experiences. So they're working with these peers of people, as well as getting this mentorship from the LabStart team and our networks as well. So you might be thinking, who are LabStart fellows? And what makes a LabStart fellow? So LabStart really looking to recruit folks who aren't just traditional founders. We're looking to uplift talented entrepreneurs who may not have the opportunity or the financial freedom to launch their own climate tech startups. Some of the characteristics that we're looking for in entrepreneurs that we support are personal grit and tenacity for success. As we mentioned, there's a lot of barriers to becoming a successful entrepreneur, but we're really looking for those folks who are willing to get up every time they get knocked down, every time they have to make a full pivot, willing to make that pivot, and really willing to spend the time to keep moving forward and launching their startup. A passion for climate entrepreneurship. As we mentioned, LabStart's really focused on launching climate entrepreneurs. And with that, it is a difficult journey. So we really need to have that passion and that drive to keep moving forward through this. Being coachable and authentic. We really are looking for people who are willing to listen to others, willing to take advice, whether that's from their other peers in the cohort, whether it's from the LabStart team, and really able to provide that advice back as well, being able to be there for one another and for yourself throughout this program. Willing to take risks and make mistakes, willing and ready to launch a company full-time, and as we'll get into, not full-time right away as the program starts, but later on at the beginning of next year, willing to make that full-time commitment. People who are scientifically literate. We're not expecting everyone who comes into the program to have PhD level knowledge of the individual science topic that they're looking at, but we're looking for people who are willing to take the time and sit down and read a patent. They're not scared of reading a journal article. And if there are words or concepts that you don't fully understand, willing to spend the time to sit down and Google these things and learn for themselves. And motivated by technology innovation. We're looking to solve the world's largest climate challenges, and it's going to take different technologies and developing those technologies to actually solve those. So people who aren't afraid of that and willing to actually excited by that opportunity. So here are some different personas of who should be applying to the LabStart program. So this could be people who want to start a climate opportunity, but you might not have had the opportunity to do so, might not have had the financial freedom. It's scary to quit your full-time job, and actually launch something, or even spend those few hours after work to figure something out. We're looking for those people to really unlock that for them. Professionals with industry insights into market problems they want to solve. You might have been working in the same industry for the last 5, 10, 15 years. And with that, you probably have so many really deep market insights into what really needs to change in the market and how that can change. We want to be that channel for you to really launch a startup around those problems that you know are actually out there in the market. Entrepreneurs looking to pivot into a new market, product, or industry, you may have tried to launch something else before, but maybe um, it wasn't as successful, and you're looking for that second chance. Or maybe you've launched something in that wasn't in climate, but now you're more interested in launching in climate. We really embrace those founders as well. Researchers who want to spin out a technology from their lab or university. May have been working on something as a postdoc through your postdoc or your PhD, but don't exactly know how to bring it to market. LabStart's here to help that as well. And someone who's identified technologies at a research institution, but don't know how to license or struggling with the licensing process. That's what LabStart's all about. We're really here to help you through that licensing process. But also not just individuals, we're also interested in seeing companies that are at their earliest stages. So by earliest stages, we mean that that you might have incorporated a company around an idea, but you might not still have identified who's your market that you're going to be going after, or you're still finalizing your technology stack. There still might be technologies that you're interested in that you want to commercialize. For these earlier stage companies, we're asking that you haven't raised any capital pertaining to a specific product or technology that you'll be working on through LabStart yet. So now that we've given you that 5,000-foot view of the LabStart program, we'll be getting into a little bit more into the nuts and bolts about the LabStart Fellowship Program, and then we'll pass it over to Jen to talk a little bit more about the curriculum and what you can expect in this Discover phase of the program. So our program is broken up into two sections. First is the Discover phase, and then the launch phase. So the Discover phase is a 4-month-long part-time program, kind of akin to a part-time MBA, where you'll be validating market problems that you're looking to solve, identifying IP or a suite of IP, whether licensed or being developed that can then solve that problem, and also to really ensure climate entrepreneurship is right for you. So before jumping in full-time into launching a venture, we're really seeing this Discover phase as de-risking that, really getting yourself as well as allowing LabStart to see that deep climate entrepreneurship is right for you. And then during this Discover phase, participants will also be receiving a $1,500 a month stipend as well. So $6,000 over those 4 months of the Discover phase. And then a select number of fellows from the Discover phase will then move on to the year-long full-time launch phase program. During this launch phase, participants will have incorporated their companies by now, and then their companies will receive a 100K milestone-based investment to help them quit their full-time jobs and focus on launching their startup full-time. And then during this year, LabStart will be providing expert mentorship, fractional executive support, curriculum sessions, and access to industry and fundraising networks to really set your company up for success. Jen will touch a lot more on this in a few minutes here, but as I mentioned, Discover phase really focused on helping you identify, do you want to be a deep climate entrepreneur? Is it right for you? What are you building a startup around? What is that real market problem out there? What are those technologies that you're looking at? And so this Discover phase will run from September to December of this year. And for the Discover phase, we'll be looking at selecting 25 fellows. And then, as I mentioned, after the Discover phase comes the launch phase. So during this launch phase, we're really here to help you launch and grow your company with a validated market, with technology being developed that you'll be able to license from universities or national labs, as well as any patents that you develop on your own through this journey. and really setting you up for commercial success. We want you to be the best applicant for downstream incubators, accelerators, as well as public and private funding. So that means helping out with your applications to state and federal grants, to downstream incubators like Activate, as well as setting you up to have a fundraise, to have a VC fundraise if that's the path that you're going to be going down. As I mentioned, 100K milestone based safe note. So you'll be getting that 100K throughout the year of the program, as well as receiving curriculum, fractional executive services, and access to our industry networks and fundraising networks. This will take place during the entirety of 2026, so January to December of 2026. And this is this launch phase. This is a full-time commitment. We ask that you don't have another full-time job during this portion of the program, so you can focus all of your efforts on launching your startup. And you can expect 2 to 4 days per week of LabStart programming. And then with that, from the 25 fellows we have in the discover phase, 5 to 10 of those fellows will be moving on to the launch phase. So you might be asking, so what is that criteria? How do I move on from that discover phase to the launch phase? So here we have our different selection criteria that we're looking at for how you can move along. And one of the biggest ones is the conviction from both yourself and from the LabStart team that launching a deep climate tech entrepreneurship, launching a deep climate tech company is the right path for you. And it's totally okay if that's not. We've had people from our program go on to launch their own nonprofits. People from our program launch their own marketing agencies, or just go on and get another job in climate from all the learnings that they've had. And those are totally okay paths. It's just that the launch phase is set up for folks who are launching their own startups. But that's not to say LabStart's still here to support you with whatever path you deem most appropriate after coming out of that discover phase of the program. So we also want you to have a strong problem statement that's that you have evidence from customer discovery interviews, from actually talking to people in the market around that you have conviction that this is actually a real problem that people are willing to pay for, that it's worth building a company around. A technology solution shortlist that has the potential to solve those challenges that you've identified. The company that you're building has potential to be scalable and investable. It's a company that can be attractive to outside investors, to state and federal grant funding, to actual bringing in customers who are willing to pay for the product that you're building. We want to see that you've given your best effort throughout this discover phase, and we want to show that you have been collaborating with other folks in the cohort. As we mentioned, we're really building this cohort model in the LabStart Fellowship because we really see how valuable it is that everyone's working with one another. So we want to be seeing that through the discover phase as well. And as well as having done your incorporation by December, so that you have a company that can receive the launch phase funding of the next year. And a little bit about the program timeline. So we are now in late June. Application opened back in April. Application closes July 7th. So that's the Monday after the July 4th weekend. So if you haven't started already, start working on those applications as that deadline will be coming up quickly. We'll be making selections in August with the program kicking off in September, discovery phase running through December of this year, and then launch phase running the entirety of 2026. And also want to show you that it's not all just deep work all the time here at LabStart. We also want to make this experience fun for you all. So we have an in-person kickoff where we fly out all of our entrepreneurs, and while also getting some curriculum, we get to do some fun things as well. So here's a picture of us where we hiked to one of the largest redwood trees out here in the Bay Area. Some photos from our kickoff in our classrooms, as well as being able to have box seats at a Warriors game thanks to one of our sponsors. Even singing karaoke. So even though we know everyone's going to be working hard, there's a lot of fun times that are part of the program as well to really build to really so you can bond with your cohort and really learn from one another and experience and share all these experiences with one another as well. So really quickly also here on our team, so you've met myself, Megan, and Alex, who you see here on the call. We also have Deepa Lounsbury, who's our CEO. She is currently not here today, but she has over 20 years of experience in early stage climate technologies on the startup side, as funding side. And we also have John Ree, who is our team coordinator, and Anna Maria, who leads our marketing and communications. But now I'd like to turn it over to Alice to talk, or not Alice, Jen, to talk a bit more about the curriculum and their company Fractal.
Thanks, Troy. I could pretend to be Alice, but my New Zealand accent isn't that great, so I'll stick to my Canadian accent. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Troy, for that great intro. So just quickly, who are we? We've all been in your shoes. So Alice and I were both part of early stage climate companies in the earlier parts of our careers. So I was one of the founding team members of a company called Carbon Cure, which has grown from when I started. We had an idea in the lab and we brought it around the world to more than 700 concrete plants around the world, helping them decarbonize. And then Alice originated from New Zealand, and she was one of the founding team members of LanzaTech. And so she helped some of their early engineering work and built their pilot plants in China, the UK, and elsewhere. So we met at Breakthrough Energy as business fellows, where we were sort of acting as fractional executives or sort of part-time COOs for the innovators who had the ideas as part of the fellowship. And we did that for 2 years. And then we sort of came together after graduating out of the breakthrough program and formed a new entity we're calling Fractal. And so part of that is our work with LabStart. We will tell you a bit more about sort of what that looks like, but essentially, I think it's on the next slide, actually, Troy, if you want to advance. What we like to do is sort of take the experiences that we've both learned scaling hardware solutions in climate and helping other founders accelerate their journeys in climate. So everything from, how do you think about bringing on a co-founder, building that initial team? How do you think about building your own leadership skills and being the best version of yourself? How do you set your goals and think about how to scale up your solution? How do you think about the unit economics? And is this, what's this solution going to cost us? What is the environmental impact? What does that LCA look like? How much money could I make? What does that revenue model look like? And how do we formulate a business model that actually makes sense to turn the idea into a scalable business? We also do a lot of stuff with customer discovery and market mapping and really helping founders find that white space where they can play and have a competitive advantage. And then Alice's expertise is really on the technical scale up, is how do you think about, taking an idea, or if you're looking at a patent, turning that science into an engineering innovation that actually does the thing that it's supposed to do, and you can actually realize that impact and then scale it up. So on the next slide, we can talk a little bit about sort of how we show up with LabStart. So we've been working with LabStart for about, 15 months now, Troy, and sort of the stars very much aligned when we started the engagement with the team here. And it's been a real joy and pleasure working with the LabStart team and all of the fellows. And so what our role here is, again, to sort of act as almost your internal advisory board, but also helping roll up our sleeves and actually helping you do the work. So the objective, as Troy alluded to, was, all of you, the main objective is to identify with evidence from the market, what is that problem that you're trying to solve? What is that pain point in the market? And then how could a solution address that pain point? And is that worth pursuing? We say, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is there an opportunity to convert that idea into a viable, sustainable business? And then on the sort of personal side, do you have conviction that this entrepreneurial journey is for you, right? And those are difficult questions to answer, but we're here to help you make those decisions. So the deliverables include looking at the market. What is the problem statement? And how do you provide evidence from your customer discovery efforts that there is a problem worth solving? And then on the solution side, there's lots of technology, lots of innovation, lots of patents just sitting there waiting to be commercialized. How do you think through which one of those solution or solutions can adequately address that problem? And am I the right person to take that to market? Then on the personal side, deciding whether that founder's journey is something that you want to take the full leap in and do this full time. And then not just you personally, but also, there's always more than one person involved in bringing these things to market. Many team members need to be involved. And so do you want to bring on a co-founder? Who are your founding team members? Sort of internally reflecting around what are your skills and experiences that you can bring to the table, and then what are the gaps, and how can we think through what other characteristics and skills do you need to bring to the table in order to pursue your journey. So the way we sort of do this is there's a few ways that we engage. So when we say curriculum, we meet a few things. First is we have live curriculum sessions where we sort of give you a crash course in how to think about starting a climate tech company. So whether that's assessing IP or thinking about your team, or running some initial numbers on what are the costs going to look like, or what is the impact going to look like. We're going to do a bit of a light touch on pretty much everything you need to know. So we'll do 3 topics a session. We really like to leverage the peer learning. So we'll put you in breakouts, and you can share some of your insights and progress and sort of troubleshoot together. And then we really leverage this concept of sort of cohort discussions. As part of that, there'll be some deliverables that you can go and take away and work on and fill out and complete, and then bring back to the team, and we can provide feedback and review those items. We then have group office hours with, again, roundtable updates to hold each other accountable to achieve whatever goal you've set for yourself, and then share any key insights along the way. And then throughout the sessions, we'll also be sort of peppering in subject matter experts, whether that's other founders who've had successes and failures and pivots and what they've learned along the way, whether it's psychologists helping to really think through how do we avoid burnout and make sure that we're building resilience for the long term, and then also sort of best practice in like tactical business activities, like how to license IP or how to structure contracts and so on. And then the last slide I think we have here is around what kind of curriculum topics will we cover. So again, we sort of mentioned it's really a crash course on how to think about launching your climate startup. And so there's the personal aspect of sort of the entrepreneurial journey. That's, what are your personal and professional goals? How do you set them? How do you think about them? And how do you align around your why? So what is motivating me? Why am I here? Why do I want to do this? And then down the line, we'll be using your why to formulate sort of the why of the business that you're going to decide whether or not to pursue. Customer discovery 101. This is incredibly important. We cover this in the first day. We want to make sure that you're gathering evidence to suggest that there is a problem that's worth solving. So what are the customers saying? What is the ecosystem or value chain that you're even looking to address? If it's cement or steel or buildings, talk to the market to figure out what their pain points are. And then the next topic will be, how do we think through a solution that can help address their pain? There'll be an intro to IP, which is very important. Most folks are not experts in IP, although some people are. And licensing can be tricky, so we're here to help you think through that process and really learn how to do that. We'll help you, think about the ecosystem, map out that value chain, think through who else is operating in this space and where there may be some white space for you to gain that competitive edge. We'll do the basics of a TEA, so there's lots of acronyms, techno-economic analysis, which essentially is how much will it cost you to deliver your solution? If you're making a new kind of cement, what does that cost look like compared to like a regular ton of cement? And then sort of the other side is the climate impact. So LCA, life cycle assessment, where it's if I'm making a new kind of cement, how do I know how that stacks up in terms of, say, carbon to regular cement? So how do we just really roughly get an assessment of what those impacts are. And then how do I think about what that's worth? What's the value to the market? And then how much could I charge? Revenue has got to be greater than costs. Otherwise, there's no viable business there. So we'll talk through different business models and how to think through value, pricing, and so on. And then there'll be an element of team really focused on early team formation around culture building and co-founder assessment to see if you need to bring on others to support you through this journey. And then we'll also look forward to think through, is this solution worth pursuing in the long term? How do I scale the product? How do I scale the team? And how do I turn this into a viable business opportunity? So all of this will go into helping you validate that problem statement. What is the pain point in the market? And then my solution that I'm going to recommend. If it's a set of solutions that you're going to down select over the course of the program, what are the things that I think I can do, and what IP can I license or develop on my own in order to address that problem? And then ultimately decide whether or not to pursue the opportunity. I think that's the last slide.
I think so too. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much, Jen. But yeah, so if anything that you've heard at all here today really resonates with you and you're interested in applying to the LabStart program, we encourage you to do so. You can find the application at labstart.co/apply, the same website where you found the link to register for this webinar at. And to quickly go through the application, it's broken up into 4 sections, with the first section being demographics. And this is just us getting to want to know who you are better. None of the questions in this demographic section will be used to either filter you in or out of the program. Just want to get a better understanding of where you're coming from and who you are, so we can really build those diverse cohorts. And then section 2 is your past experience, helping us understand where you're coming from, what's your expertise, and how do you fit best in this program. And then sections 3 and 4 are the more meatier sections of the application, with cell 3 being a self pitch. And for this section, we're asking that you create a 2-minute video to share and answer the 2 questions. What is your story, and why should you be a LabStart fellow? We really encourage you to be authentic and in your video here. We just want to get a better understanding of who you are and why you want to be doing this deep climate entrepreneurship journey, and especially with LabStart. There's also a couple more long form questions in there. We're looking at 2 to 4 sentence answers around a little bit more just around your background and who you are and your experiences. And then section 4 is the tech review and pitch. So there's a separate slide deck of instructions that's linked in the application around this section, but basically we're asking you to identify licensable IP that you're interested in that solves a market problem that you're interested in solving, and then record a 2-minute video to present initial business idea around this IP and talk about the market need and the impact of that innovation. So we're asking you to take a look at different technology licensing websites, whether this is from universities typically or national labs, and looking at their databases to find technologies that you're interested in. And this could be around a 2-hour process of identifying and looking through the databases, picking that technology, doing some high-level research, and preparing for that video pitch. Just want to say that the technology that you select for this part of the application, you're not married to that throughout the program. We're just really using this as a starting point for you to come into the program having looked at AI and IP already, and how it applies to a certain market problem. And throughout the course of the program, you'll be able to identify, do I need to pivot away from this technology? Is this technology actually solving a different pain point that's actually there in the market? So throughout the program, you'll be pivoting to different technologies, different market problems that you're looking at. So this isn't going to be the end all be all for the IP that you select. Yeah, and in applying to LabStart fellowship, but might not be exactly sure of like Where do I start? What kind of technology areas do I look at? Well, we have a list here of some of the different areas that we think are very high impact, high potential in for both technology and the marketplace. So this includes data center sustainability, grid modernization, energy infrastructure, carbon and methane management removal, circular economy, fire technology, nature-based solutions. But these are just this is non-exhaustive list, but just some ideas to get your juices flowing as you're looking through different technologies that you might be interested in. And lastly, before moving it over to Q&A, just want to touch, we have a specific carve out in this cohort for folks working on data center sustainability. So we have a couple corporate sponsors now, Hewlett Packard Enterprise Foundation, as well as Equinix Foundation, who are sponsoring a specific subset of this cohort to be focusing on launching companies that are at the intersections of data centers and climate. As you all know, a lot of AI is popping up now, and with that, there's a large data center demand with that. So we're looking at how do we build these data centers and operate these data centers as sustainably as possible with being climate forward. So we'll be looking at 8 Discover Phase fellows to be these data center fellows in this first stage of the program. And these data center specific fellows will get subject matter expert webinars to hear from our corporate sponsors and as well as their partners to really hear what's top of mind for them and what are they looking for in their next generation of operating data centers or building out data centers. As well as access to employees and external stakeholders for customer discovery calls. And then from those 8, at least 2 launch phase data center fellows will be selected for that full year-long launch phase. And then during that launch phase, they'll receive dedicated point of contacts at one or both of these organizations so that I can stay up to date on what's new at these companies. Is what they're developing still in line with what the companies are looking at? Access to different site visits from corporates and their stakeholders. This could be going to data centers, looking at construction sites as they're building out new data centers, and continued access to different employees and external stakeholders for customer discovery calls. So this we really value these corporate partnerships as it provides access from day one for our entrepreneurs to be talking with people who can be potential partners down the road so that they know that they're really building something and really building their companies around what corporates are actually willing to pay for at the end of the day. But with that, that concludes our slides here. So we'll spend the rest of the hour going through any questions that you guys might have. So feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A below that you see. Thank you to Megan and Alex. I believe they've been providing answers to questions as well already. So if I don't answer your question live, it was probably in that answered section. And if anybody has any questions around the curriculum, feel free to drop those in here as well so that Jen can answer those too. All right, well, I'll start with this first question that we have here. So in terms of raising capital, do small non-dilutive grants count, especially if it's not related to the technology we choose for LabStart? Small amounts of capital is totally fine as long as you're not as long as you haven't raised like more than like 300K or $500,000 around like your company already. I think that's still early stage enough. We understand, especially in this deep climate technology, there's a lot of capital is needed to actually grow and launch your company. So smaller amounts of capital is totally fine if you've already raised that for your company before coming into LabStart. All right, what percent is the 100K for, or is this negotiated company by company? So the 100K is a safe note. So what that means is that there's not equity assigned to that 100K today. It's equity that will be assigned in the future. So that once you go out and raise your first priced round, which means that when you raise private capital and there's a valuation tied to the amount of funding that you raise tied to your company, that's when those safe notes will convert to equity. So it's purely dependent on how what your raise is and what terms you're raising on when you have your first capital raise. And then if you look at the slides that are that are on labstart.co/apply on the DocSend link that's there on the Learn More button, there are a couple slides that go into deeper detail around the funding mechanisms that we're using, that talk about warrants, that talk about safe notes, just so that you can get a better idea of that. Let's see. As an entrepreneur, when we apply for this application, we should introduce university. Can we introduce a company which has a laboratory? A little confused by this question, but I think I'll answer it as best as I can. So when you're submitting your application, you should be looking at, for that section 4 that I talked about, take a look at different universities and national lab IP that they have available. You can usually access this through their technology licensing office, technology transfer office. Those are the common names that a lot of these universities use. And take a look at the IP that's in there. You don't have to already have a relationship with this university or with the researcher. That's something that we'll help you with through the LabStart program, so that once you've really identified a technology that you want to be working on, LabStart will help you engage with that tech transfer officer, with the researcher, so that you can build that relationship with them and eventually work your way to a license there. All right. Next one is, what often sets apart the 25 candidates selected for the discovery phase from the remaining applicants? So I think something that sets you apart is really looking back at those different criteria that I had on the board there. I think really showing your passion and determination for launching a climate tech startup, I think is one of the most important aspects of it. It's launching a deep climate tech startup is probably one of the more difficult career paths that you can be going down. So it takes a lot of grit and determination, and showing that you have that in your background. I think that's what's going to set apart applicants from one another. Really showing however they can show, whether it's through past experiences, whether it's the passion that they're talking about, the challenges that they want to be tackling, is I really think being able to come through in your application and showing that is really going to set yourself apart, as well as how, like, showing that you can be collaborative. We have a big emphasis on that collaboration in that cohort. So being able to show that you have that experience and you'll be able to provide and you're willing to provide your experiences is really something that can be helpful there. Megan, did you have any other thoughts on that, of like what can set apart an applicant from others?
Sorry, my brain is in question answer mode.
No worries.
What sets apart? No, I appreciate, yeah, the enthusiasm is a big one, because this is a long journey and we want, there's so much about figuring out the roadblocks as they come, and that's not the part you need figured out, but the closer that an individual is to knowing this is what they want to do with their next however many years, the more that's going to carry you and your peers through. So I think that's a great answer, Troy. The other thing is maybe if you have a clear problem space or market area that you have experience or insight in, that you understand there's a problem that either you want to solve or needs to be solved in that industry, that's really valuable to be coming from the lens of a particular industry that you can position yourself as an expert to solve that problem with the company that you develop.
Thank you. All right, so next question we have is, can you provide an estimate for the part-time hours per week during the discovery phase? So I think we'll say on average probably around 10 hours a week is what we're looking at in like total time that you're working towards this, it's going to be up to you. You can be spending more than that, you can be spending less than that, but it's what's it going to take to actually make actual valuable forward progress with what you're working on. And we understand that life gets in the way. You might be spending a lot more one week, a little bit less another week. But we also ask that, and I'll have Jen touch on this, that there's a minimum number just based on like the office hours and the curriculum sessions that we want you to be coming to every week. But yeah, Jen, if you want to talk to a little bit about like the hours commitment, at least for the curriculum sessions and the office hours.
Yeah, so it's sort of, I would say like 2 to 3 hours a week, and we alternate between like curriculum content and sort of setting up the deliverables as like homework, if you will. And then the other week would be the group working sessions where we come with questions and want to present your materials, and here are my key insights, and here are the things that I still don't know and I want to talk through, and so on. So I'd say like 2 to 3 hours a week on the calls, and then there's the additional time to actually go and do the work. Does that help, Troy?
Definitely. Thanks, Jen. All right, so next question are solutions around satellite and mobile app tech for agricultural emissions management considered? So we are climate tech agnostic broadly, save for those 8 spots for data center sustainability. We will be taking a look at any solution in climate, as long as you've through the discovery phase, you've really made the argument that this is a large problem that needs to be tackled in climate, and that there is an actual solution that you've identified that you can launch. So through the discover phase of the program, we want you to be able to show these data points that I've talked to actual people. This is a real problem in the market. People are willing to pay for this, and there's a large scale climate impact. So we're not necessarily too prescriptive about exactly the technology areas. As long as it's in climate, there's a good chance that it could be moving forward. I guess this goes into the next question too, is how do you prioritize climate topic area over the course of the program? And I'm assuming climate topic area as being like different climate tech industries like manufacturing, carbon removal, and things like that. So how we prioritize it, the curriculum that Alice and Jen are providing is not necessarily tied to a specific climate topic area. That topic area is the things that you will be doing as a fellow. As you're going out, you'll be identifying people in the industry. We'll also be making intros for you that are people that are in our networks around in these different topic areas. And we want you speaking with those different people through customer discovery interviews. So we're not covering specific climate topic areas through our curriculum, but as an individual fellow, you'll be going out and understanding the topic area that you're in as best as you can through customer discovery interviews, from looking at technologies in the market, technologies available to license, and things like that.
Can I add one thing on that, Troy?
Yeah.
So we've intentionally designed the curriculum and the templates to be applicable to a broad range of categories. So if you're doing, like I said, an alternative to cement, or direct air capture, or low carbon ammonia, or whatever, we have elevated the content so that it's relevant for everybody. And then we sort of go deep on a few examples to be like, if you were doing this type of solution, here's an example of how you would run a TEA. Or if you were doing this other example and you wanted to play around with a few different business models, here's another deep dive example in this other category. So we try to sort of cover a bunch of different examples, just so people can see how the same content can be applied in different areas.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. And so our next question is, during either the discovery and our launch phases, is there funding or support for things like attending, traveling to industry conferences, events, accessing market intelligence, data reports, etc.? So yes and no. So at a minimum, we'll provide funding to come out. There's going to be a kickoff event for the launch phase, as well as 2 to 4 in-person events as well. And those in-person events will be taking place at large conferences like San Francisco Climate Week, New York Climate Week, where we will be paying for your flights and lodging to come to those different events. So at a minimum, those are events that we would be providing funding for you to be coming out to and attending the events, speaking with different people in the industry then. Um, it's dependent on our funding situation with like federal funds and things like that. But can't make any necessary promises right now about extra budget for on top of the 100K investment outside of that. But we can at least promise to our in-person events where we'll be bringing the whole cohort together. Megan, did you have any other thoughts on that as well?
Will you repeat the question?
During the discover or launch phase, is there funding support in addition to the 100K investment for things like attending travel to industry conferences, accessing market intelligence reports, etc.?
No, the stipend is, up for the grantees or the fellows to decide how they'd like to utilize those funds. If there are some pop-up events and things that you want to get to, like you can decide to use the stipend funds for those events. We do support the travel to the kickoff week. That's our primary event for the year. We have had other situations where we attended other events and we found sponsors to bring more fellows out, and those are, I would say, not guaranteed, but really fantastic when they happen. So we are always
Yeah.
looking for ways to bring people more opportunities to get
Yeah.
to events.
Yeah, and also there are ways that we can help you attend those for free, like helping you sign up to be a volunteer and things like that. So there's other ways around that too. But yeah, but as we mentioned, it's mainly that the 100K safe note. Is there a typical range of equity conversion from SAFE for LabStart? We don't have a current at this time. Our first set of safe notes were just in our previous cohort that just graduated, and typically they're not climate startups aren't raising a equity round, a price round until their seed, which could still be a couple years after the program, since most of them raise their pre-seed round, which is also more safe notes after after our program. So currently we don't have a range for that. But it's gonna be totally different depending on what type of company you are, who are the markets you're serving, and what your investment terms are, just what like the investment market is like at that time. Can you speak more on folks coming in with existing early stage company who want to venture into a new product? What are you looking for in terms of fit, especially with our existing business? So I think I'll give you an example of this from our last cohort. So one of our previous fellows, Hamilton, had a previous business where he was it was called Hamilton Perkins Collection, where he was upcycling materials, waste textiles, and turning them into handbags. Well, that necessarily wasn't like a tech forward solution. It was more of like they're developing a product from this that there was no like IP or technology behind it. Then through our program, he pivoted into identifying how can I be recycling textiles at large rather than just upcycling them into bags. So I guess that's an example there where they started with a product that they were selling previously, but then wanted to pivot into this larger tech solution, which is a much larger market and a whole different market even than what they were doing initially. So I don't think there's like a necessarily a silver bullet answer to that question. We'll be evaluating based on that, but we want if you're coming in with an existing company that's already doing it's like almost like they're looking at a new venture, but just using their existing networks and existing things from that company to be turning that to be going through our program with. All right, next question. For the full-time committed stage, post-career, so this is the launch phase. The commit is full-time, but does it have to be during business hours, Monday through Friday, or can 9 through 5 as traditional, or can entrepreneurs have full agency of how and when they spend their time? So you'll you doesn't have to be a 9 to 5 schedule. I think that's going to be one of the advantages of working for yourself, of being the boss of your own company. The only things that we ask is that you come to all LabStart programming, which isn't going to be in that full 9 to 5 window, but it's going to be somewhere in that 9 to 5 window most days during the week. But most of these sessions will be at most we'll have at most 2 hours a day with these, but your schedule is going to be totally flexible to you. We're not here to have you clock in and clock out every day. Just want you to when you give that full-time effort, and we know that life gets in the way. It can be that you might have kids that you have to pick up from work or after work. That's totally fine. As long as you're putting in that time, whether what hours of the day that is, whether it's on a weekday or weekend, totally up to you throughout the program. All right, next question. Can co-founders attend some sessions in office hours? Yes, so um, there, yes, our program designed for it's at least on the funding side for a founder to be going through the program. I think more so on the launch phase than the discover phase, that we would like there might be individual office hours where we would encourage you to bring your co-founder if you have a co-founder there. There's different subject matter expert speakers or different different curriculum sessions that we would also let you know that it's totally good, totally fine to invite your co-founder to this as well. So it's going to be like there might not be every single event, like we might not be able to provide funding for them to come to the kickoff or to like SF Climate Week, but if there's different curriculum sessions that you have a technical co-founder at and you want them to be joining in on the TEA session, I think that'd be totally fine. But it would be like a session by session basis. We just ask that you ask get asked beforehand for them to show before they show up. Awesome. All right. Well, it looks like we're right at time anyway, and looks like answered all the questions. If I didn't get to your question live, please take a look on the answered section here. Either Alex or Megan probably provided an answer to your questions there. But awesome. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all so much for joining us here today and learning more about the LabStart Fellowship Program. Again, applications are due July 7th. So please take a look. It can be accessed at labstart.co/apply. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out at apply@labstart.co. Awesome. Well, and we'll also be posting this recording if anybody wants to watch it back again later. All right. Thank you all so much, and we really appreciate it. Take care.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.